Welcome to another edition of the 2's Review, looking back at the latest Atlanta United 2 match. I'm Jason Longshore, John Nelson alongside. What's up, John?
It's you're in match week 2 all of a sudden. The matches come at you kind of fast and furious. I know that with our time that it's blended with Atlanta United, things come even faster, and with what's going to be happening in USL League One, it'll be even faster. So it's definitely a part of the year where you've got to write things down or you forget where you are, much less what you're talking about.
Yeah, lots of stuff. Friday night, Atlanta United 2 lost 1-0 to the defending back-to-back champions, Louisville City. The boys in purple came in after a very disappointing Week 1 loss, 4-1 at North Carolina. They looked better. They didn't dominate the match, and that's one thing that maybe surprised me a little bit. I expected a little bit more from them. They didn't lose a lot of people from last year, but they lost some very important pieces, and I think they're still kind of figuring out what they're going to look like. So even though it's a loss, I think for the Atlanta perspective, it was a good performance from a very young group. A lot of guys getting their first time on the field in USL, and a lot of young guys maybe just getting their second. And they stood toe-to-toe with the back-to-back defending champs.
Yeah, and for a team in Lou City that doesn't have Illich, doesn't have Lancaster, doesn't have Greg Ranjitsingh, they still had 8 guys on the roster in 2019 who played more than 20 matches. So it wasn't a completely and totally new batch of folks that were coming in there. And you know that they're being down 4-0, losing 4-1 to Dave Saracen and North Carolina FC. There was probably a lot of soul searching as a group after that match. And you know that they had one thing in mind, and it was quickly putting that game in the rearview mirror going up against ATL UTD 2. And you had the experience of Louisville City going up against the youth of ATL UTD 2, and honestly, it was a fun microcosm of what the league is about from 2 different perspectives, and you're seeing 2 approaches to trying to get to the same thing.
Yeah, you've got this across the league. You have a lot of teams that are very young. Tacoma Defiance out in the Western Conference fields teenagers on a regular basis. Atlanta United 2 will do the same. And you have independent clubs that have a lot of veterans and a lot of quality in their side. And now we're starting to see even more MLS veterans come down to USL Championship and continue their careers and have an impact on that next generation. Louisville City has some of those types of players as well. So it's very interesting matchups that we're going to see week in and week out in the USL Championship. Let's get things started with the highlights. Atlanta United 2, Louisville City, 1-0 for the boys in purple. Here's how it sounded.
Sayadu, Pereira, nicely done. Luis Fernando with the left and just missed.
What a touch from Dion Pereira now. After the touch, it's a perfect through ball to Luis Fernando. And
Oscar tries to dribble out of trouble. Nicely done. Sent in with the right, looking for Spencer. Spencer's there, so is Can. Tries to figure out what to do at the left. In between the legs, defended by Alec Can, away from trouble. Big save.
1v1 with Luke Spencer. Spencer goes nutmeg. It comes off the outside, or the inside.
Luis Fernando trying to work off Oscar. Speedy Williams is there, and Oscar sends it forward to spring Luke Spencer. Wyke is back. Slips on the turf. Chance for Lou City with the right punch, clear by Can. Another opportunity. Ownby tried to do a scissor kick, picked up by Metcalf.
Shot from Spencer. Great head fake, puts Lawrence Wyke on the ground.
Finds Luis Fernando. Del Piccolo on him. Chance here for the Stripes. Fernando looking to go. Step over. Left. There. Shot. Kick. Save. Benitez now with it. Springs Carlton. Right foot. Hook. And again, another mitt in the air by Ben Loon for the big save.
Up to the test there. Big right hand to push that away from Carlton.
A lot behind it. Paco, Craig, and Francis.
Game getting stretched out right now.
Ownby trying to go on Gallagher with the left and in. Header goes in. It's Abdujam in the 72nd. You mentioned the game gets stretched, and Louisville City gets on the board.
On one side of the field, ends up on the other side, left-footed cross to the near post. All Jam has to do is go up and meet it. Alec can't get off his line quick enough. It's over Lawrence Wyke.
Post-match audio. Let's start with the captain, Jack Metcalf, and his thoughts on the night.
Look, never nice to lose. It's a tough feeling coming off the field, losing, especially a 1-goal game. I think we had some chances there where they made some good blocks, or we didn't quite execute our final ball tonight. And I think that was probably the main difference. They took their one chance that they got. They had several others that they didn't execute on, and we didn't execute on ours. And I think our final ball was probably what let us down at the end of the game. Yeah.
That's such a big transition from the first game last week to this week. What was that like, having so many new guys on the team, or at least in the first 11?
Look, anytime the team changes, you're gonna come into, you're gonna have difficulties, or not difficulties, but you're gonna have different personnel on the field, so they might, like to go forward, and you just need to know their tendencies a little bit more. But we see that in training, so I don't think that played too much of a role. We have a system, and guys just fit into that. So,
how's the system been game 2 under Coach Glass, and what you seen from him, especially that, I guess that 3-4-3 or that type of formation?
Yeah, obviously we played further back today, and look, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter really what system we play. There's still a style of play that we're looking for, and like I said earlier, I think our final ball was just lacking a little bit of quality tonight, and I think that's probably why we didn't get the equaliser or go ahead. We had several chances to do that and didn't quite manage to pull it off.
With Tyler Ruthen injured and unavailable, Lawrence Wyke got his USL Championship debut. The debutant from Bolton, England, with his thoughts on the match.
I thought I did quite well. It took a minute to get into the game. Felt comfortable on the ball. Was just really trying to do my job for the team. Unfortunately, we fell short tonight, but I think we did things well. I think there's things we need to improve on, but overall, it's a positive, I think, performance from the boys.
Guys, there's so much physicality out there. Really very aggressive. A lot of hard tackles. What was that like for you out there, just seeing that professional atmosphere? Yeah,
it was a little bit different. Obviously, being playing college before this, there was still physicality in the college game, but playing with this experienced Louisville team, playing against them, obviously training. I've been here for a week and a half, 2 weeks, training with the boys. I've quickly adapted to that, and I feel it was difficult, but I thought we dealt with it. Hopefully we'll just make some strides now.
Anything else for Lawrence?
What's that like for you? Just and you work with some of the first team guys, like Alec and Andrew Carlton came down. What's that like for you, seeing those first team guys and seeing the potential to maybe yourself make that first team move eventually?
No, both of them fantastic players, and all the first team guys that came down, and it's a real great experience playing with such quality. And it puts belief in the USL players that we can go one day and make that jump. Playing alongside them guys, push our way forward like they have done. So it's real motivation.
And let's hear from the manager, Stephen Glass, with his comments after the match.
I thought it was a really good team performance. We're playing against a good team that's been managed by a top coach, and they've got a real good group of players. So it was an impressive performance from a lot of our players as a team and individually.
What came into the makeup of the lineup today? I know, because we were in coordination with the first team. Alec was able to get some time at goalkeeper. Just talk about that first 11 and what the decision process with some of those guys.
It's basically going to be the same every week. See who's available to us. See who's available from the top end with the first team, and then from underneath with the academy. So which ones are we going to push from the academy, and how can we accommodate it based on what comes from the first team? So that's going to become a week-on-week decision, and you might see a different group week to week. But I think the one thing that you've seen tonight was an Atlanta United team that could pass it, that could press, and that looked like they wanted to win, and it hurts that they got beat. So I think in terms of everything we're trying to achieve, we try to win the game, of course we do, and we're disappointed, but a lot of good positives to come out of the game.
Some of the first team guys, Alec and Andrew Carlson, what do you see from them? Were they able to get their minutes in and get what they need to take care of in the time they were out there today?
Yeah, exactly. They're contributing when they're here. They're contributing to this group. Andrew was sick the other day, so he did well to last the time that he did. So he missed a couple of days with an illness. But it's a great measure of what we're doing as a staff here and right throughout the club, that these guys actually, there's a desire to come and play. Andrew's sick, but he gets himself out and he pushes himself through there. Very easy for first team lads to say after 45 minutes, I'm not feeling great and all that sort of thing, but a player like Andrew pushed himself, wanted to be on the field, and probably disappointed to get taken off, I'm sure, because he just loves playing and scoring goals, and I'm sure you've seen that.
Let's get into the game a little bit, John, and our thoughts on how this played out. Man of the match, who was that for you from the Atlanta perspective?
Ooh, wow. As I'm sitting here and trying to play through it in my head, I would go with, I'm kind of split, but I'll go with John Gallagher, considering how his game has been developing and where it is now. He's becoming more confident in a position that we didn't think that, he was going to be. And he's been given the opportunity to have a different role, and you're seeing him now flourish in that role. I would have given it, partially to George Campbell, but then he had the knock. But I'll go with Gallagher for man of the match.
Yeah, I would probably lean to that as well. Campbell impressed me a lot with his ability to play through that. You didn't have another option at center back, and Campbell had to deal with it. It looked like a cramp, and he continued to play through and adjusted into the match. I was very impressed. There was a play late where he's in a foot race. I can't remember who it was he was in the foot race with, but might have been Jon. And he couldn't run at full speed. He didn't have it in him, but he took up a good position and cut off the angle and handled it.
Yep.
Handled it really well. Let's look at the numbers a little bit. Atlanta had 58% of the possession at the end of the day. Louisville City 42. Atlanta with 12 shots to Louisville 7. Louisville City had 3 shots on target. Atlanta had 2. Pretty even game. More crosses from Atlanta. Atlanta had the possession advantage, which you would expect. You kept Louisville City to 70% on their passing, which is a little on the low side. It was a good overall performance. The midfield, I thought, made life difficult for Louisville City. The midfield combination, the holding midfield combination of Jack Metcalf and Anderson Asayadu, what do you think of their pairing?
Well, think about Metcalf for a second. A yellow card in the 5th minute and having to play the rest of the match on that yellow. And I think that you see in Asayadu, secondly, you're seeing flashes, but then there are those times where, yes, you understand why he's with ATL UTD too. There's the one bad pass that sticks into my head, but I like the combinations. I like Asayadu's aggressiveness hopping into the play when he did. I thought that Dion Pereira held himself well at times. And to what Coach Glass mentioned about Andrew Carlson giving you 77 minutes when he wasn't 100%. And then, we get to see Will Vent, Patrick Okonkwo, and Guillermo Benitez come off the bench in the second half. But to your point, I like what I'm seeing with Metcalf and Asayadu. I give Metcalf a lot of credit for sticking it out the way that he did and not varying his game, but still being careful on the yellow. And I like what I'm seeing from Asayadu growing into the match as he did.
So these are the things that are tricky for Stephen Glass. You only had 2 center backs available. You could not play a 3-4-3 in this match unless you're going to play someone out of position. So It's Campbell and Lawrence Wyke, and we'll talk about Wyke here in a second. John Gallagher on the right side, no shock there. We've seen him as a right back in a 4-man back line. Gordon Wild as the left back to start over Guillermo Benitez. Mm-hmm. We talked about it on the broadcast early on. He was really struggling positionally. I thought he improved and got better as the night went on.
I agree. I think that he grew into the match, and I think he grew into his responsibilities on that left-hand side as you're looking at it from the press box. So to see Gordon trying to figure out what he's doing and how he's trying to approach it. I give him a lot of credit for being placed where he was, and then you could tell that they were trying, that Louisville City was trying, although I think that they could have tried more to go after that side of the pitch where Wild was early on. They didn't, but then Gordon Wild grows into the match as well. So, he's another guy that you tip your hat to for being placed in a certain position and having to kind of get on the job training against Lou City.
Yeah, especially against a guy like Oscar who led Louisville City in assists last year as an outside back. Didn't really get down the right side very much. Wasn't involved all that much going forward. Lawrence Wyke was a newcomer to the starting lineup. What do you think of his rookie debut?
Good first impression, and there were times where you could tell it was his first. There was, I think there was one back pass that sticks into my head, and then also when he was defending, and like a lot of other folks on the pitch at fifth third, got caught in a wet spot near where the 12 sprinklers were working overtime, both at the half and pregame. So I think it was a solid first time out of the blocks. I know that he was pleased. I know that there are things that he thinks he has to work on, as they all do, but solid first performance for being put back there. And, once again, you're being thrown into a match up against the two-time defending champs, and you didn't flinch. You weren't intimidated by your surroundings, and you could see his confidence grow as well. But he knows that first time out of the blocks, there's still some things to work on.
Yeah, Wyke was on the ball a lot out of the back. Led the team in touches, led the team in passes, passed at 75%. Thought he did well. I thought he did really well, and you got to consider the center back pairing is an academy player in his second match in the USL Championship ever, and a rookie from Furman in his first match in the USL Championship ever. Not bad at all for Stephen Glass's crew. Let's get into the attack and move up the field to the wingers. Dion Pereira, Luis Fernando. What'd you think of what they brought to the table?
I liked Pereira on the inside. There were a couple of opportunities where I thought he might have been pressing a little bit. Same with Luis Fernando, but overall trying to create, especially when you're trying to catch up after the goal is scored by Abdujam in the 72nd for that final 20 minutes. Yet you know that you're going to try to work things. Luis Fernando doing it on the wing and Dion Pereira in the middle. I still think that obviously, once again, it's trying to get acquainted with one another, and it's going to be difficult because a lot of times you may not know who the rest of your 18 is until a day or two before because of what's going on with the parent club. But for it being a second match, Luis Fernando on the edge, Pereira becoming more and more comfortable in the middle, I'm like, okay, just continue the growth curve with what you're trying to do in the places that Stephen Glass is trying to put you.
Yeah, I think Pereira 1v1 shows his ability. It's a little inconsistent. He kind of drifts in and out of matches at times, but when he's on, he's spectacular to watch. Fernando, I really like just the grind to his game.
Yeah, it's a good
works
word.
Hard. 25 passes, 92% accurate, 23 of those passes in the opposition's half, and 91.3% accuracy. That's really good. He found Andrew Carlton in a lot of spots as well. Fernando's a gamer. I like what he brings to the table, and I want to see his development continue. Carlton, coming off sickness, not 100%. Kind of struggled early on, and it makes a lot more sense now that we know, he wasn't feeling completely right. But he, again, is another one who grew into the game and probably had the best chance for ATL UTD to, with a shot destined for the far corner that was a huge save to keep Atlanta off the board.
Yeah, Ben Loon stretching out and getting that big paw in the air because that was headed upper 90. And I also have to tip my hat to Loon. First start. And after the shaky start, he grew into the match as well. So it was either going to be Lunt or Dobrowolski going at it. And John Hackworth decides to go with the first-timer there, and stellar effort for him as he grew into the match as well, and having to parry that shot from Carlton. And there were another couple of opportunities that the Stripes had that Luton had to put a paw up there to make sure that there wasn't going to be a goal or two on the board. And I know that's something else that the Stripes are going to be looking at, is just finishing opportunities. If there's a chance there, make sure that you finish it, put it in the back of the net. But there were times where Lunt was kind of standing on his head and had to use all the vertical that was there to make sure that the Stripes didn't get on the board.
And let's talk about that attack. Jackson Conway was the starter again, playing as a number 9 in a 4-2-3-1. I thought he worked extremely hard. He showed some savviness, good at using his body, and it's not something you see from a teenager very often. Knew when to draw contact, when to shield people off. Not enough from him in the final third. It really felt like he was disconnected from the rest of the group in possession.
Yes, and it looked like there were times when he was trying too hard, although for him to position himself for that first touch on the joust and try to use his height and positioning to his advantage, there were times that you're sitting there saying, okay, there's some progression here, but being involved in that from his position in the offensive third in the middle of it all, there were times it was just difficult for him to navigate and try to get something going.
Yeah, he was pretty involved on the physical side of it. He committed a couple of fouls. He earned a couple of fouls. And again, it's a 17-year-old battling with Paco Craig, who's been USL Best 11 back-to-back years, and Alexis Swahi, who developed at Le Havre in France. And Craig developed at West Ham, by the way. You're talking about two guys with a pretty good pedigree, and that's who Jackson Conway's battling it out with. These are the things that will make him a better player. He is definitely one to keep an eye on for the first team down the road. I think he's still growing into his body a little bit, too. He's grown a lot since we saw him first with Atlanta United's U16 Academy squad when the club started. Let's talk about the substitutes. Guillermo Benitez, not quite as electric as he was in week 1, but still I think brought a presence, brought an attacking mindset to the left side when he came on for Gordon Wild, about what we would have expected.
Agreed. And, once again, I'm enjoying Benitez's work rate. I'm enjoying the fact that he's more than happy to put it in fifth gear and try to get the best out of things in the time that he's put out there. He put in 25 minutes, if my math is right this time around-ish. So I know that going back and comparing him to what happened against Hartford, not the same, but nevertheless, I'm enjoying seeing him getting involved and engaged when it comes to both sides of the ball for the Stripes.
Okonkwo came on late for Conway, and I thought Patrick was very active. He had a shot. He seemed to be constantly involved, and that's what you're going to have to see from him to continue to get more time. It was an uneven year for him in Charleston, but I think ultimately a good one, and he's with Atlanta United. He's going to stay in the Atlanta United system this year. I think he's a player who still has a lot of room to grow, but I liked what he brought to the table Friday night.
Yeah, and you're having to do it in half the time that Benitez does. You're brought on in the 78th, so you're given basically 15 minutes to go run around out there, try to get something going, try to jumpstart an offense, and put something in the back of the net. I want to see how Patrick continues in a full season under the Atlanta United umbrella, and I want to see how his game continues to grow. We saw it last year. Both he and Gordon Wild down in Charleston with the Battery, and now that he's back, now that they're both back with Atlanta United, I want to see what parts of the game that they're working on. I want to see them continue to grow, and I want to see them grow under this umbrella and this system. That, to me, is what I'm looking for Okonkwo this year.
And the last substitute was Will Vent. Vent, when he came in, things changed a little bit. Vent dropped deeper. Anderson Aseyadu moved up a little bit higher in the formation, but it was Vent who the team was playing through at this point. Didn't play very long, but he had 21 touches. He had 17 passes, showed that range of passing, again, that we've seen from him. He had 3 crosses as well. He didn't play for very long in this one, but I thought out of the substitutes, he impacted the match the most.
Yeah, and we saw it against Hartford, and once again, it's half the time that he's out there for the match against Louisville City, but we're seeing why folks were interested in having them be a part of their teams. And if you go back to the 65-yarder that he dropped on Hartford, and you're seeing these flashes, and I can't wait. Will Vint, for me, is another guy that I want to see have a full year under this system. I know that a lot of folks were thinking maybe late last year he might get a cameo or something like that, but he's been nurtured through the offseason, and now he's in the Atlanta United system trying to figure things out. We're seeing those flashes, and I want to see if he continues to be that fulcrum like he was in the 15 minutes that he played against Louisville City, and how they continue to work at him if he's going to be the spoke in the wheel.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Will Vint get a start, and I think he's just about ready for that. Academy players come in and generally have to earn that opportunity. Campbell was ready for it last year. An injury took him out. He starts from day one this season. Vint is one to watch, and to be able to come in off the bench as an Academy player and have an impact in back-to-back weeks, it's a really good sign. Love his range of passing, love his confidence. Still makes some Academy-type mistakes, completely understandable. I like that it's not changing the way he plays. That shows a really strong personality. The 2's are on the road next week. We will not be seeing them at Kennesaw State. They will be up in Charlotte to face the Independents. What's the details on that, John?
That is 7 o'clock at the Sports Park at Matthews. And so for those of you who have ESPN Plus, hit that, and you'll be able to watch over the weekend. You'll be able to watch all the USL action, USL Championship action, and then you'll see USL League One coming up in 2 weeks' time. ESPN Plus, catch it there, and keep an eye. If memory serves, I believe Poppy Miller will be calling that one for those who will be keeping an eye on ESPN Plus. So it'll be good to hear Poppy describing the action for Charlotte and Atlanta United 2 from Matthews. Last week, the Independents lost to Indy 11 3-2.
Looking forward to it. We'll see how the 2's do on the road for their first test away from the friendly confines at Kennesaw State University. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll be back next week with another 2's review as we look back on the Charlotte match.